Welcome to the San Diego Business Journal's Community of Business podcast, covering all of the vibrant business activity in the greater San Diego metropolitan area. And now, here are your hosts, Kevin Leet, publisher, and Jeff Clementson, editor-in-chief.
Hi, this is Kevin Leet, publisher of San Diego Business Journal. Thank you for joining us here on our Community of Business podcast. We're here today with Cheri, Pierre from Computers to Kids and Jeff Clementson, our editor-in-chief. We're going to be exploring things in business that are happening in San Diego over the next year. So we're pleased to have you with us today. And Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Kevin, thank you very much. This is our first episode 1 of the Community of Business podcast. And we are very excited today to be joined by Cheri Pierre, CEO of Computers to Kids. Cheri, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. For our listeners, why don't you explain how you came into Computers to Kids and your role there, and then maybe explain what the organization does.
So first off, I'll just say what Computers to Kids is for the audience who does not know. We are a leading advocate in digital equity by providing access to affordable computers, internet, and training for underserved populations. I have been fortunate and honored to be the CEO since July of 2007, and when I came into that organization, we were distributing just 350 computers locally here in San Diego. Now, 20 years later, entering into our 21st year, we do anywhere up to 45,000 devices a year all over the United States.
Wow. Why don't you take our listeners on a deep dive into the process of how you collect the donations, how the distribution happens, what you do for safety and privacy for people who do not donate their devices, et cetera.
Yes, so it's important to know that on an average annual basis worldwide, about 50 million tons of computer devices are being refreshed. And as we know, there's got to be a place to put them, and landfills is not it. So Computers to Kids works with the community, corporate and individuals, to take all of those devices and make sure we're extending the life of them for another 3 to 5 years. We do that by bringing the systems in and first performing a sanitation check. And we do use the same software that the Department of Defense uses for sanitation of information data on our systems, which is really important for anyone who wants to make sure that their privacy and information stored on those computers are maintained. But then we have a wonderful, fabulous team of IT refurbishers that will pull the systems apart and rebuild them up to make them the most robust system they can be. By making them a robust system, we're able to place them into the homes of low-income families, children, military families, seniors, English second language learners. Anybody who cannot afford a computer on their own will be able to put that system in their home, and they'll use that device to really help better their quality of life. So we know it's a proven fact that having a computer in the home and access to the resources that that tool provides you allows you to have racial equity, economic equity, educational equity, and health equity, which is really important in today's world to make sure that you and your family can get ahead.
And while you were growing Computers to Kids over the last few years, what were the changes that happened that you've seen in the need for recycling computers and the need for students to have computers? What were some of the macro changes that kind of led to the growth of the organization?
Well, there were 2 points that I think really changed the need. Thank goodness computers came smaller in size. For any of you who are as old as I am and remember those ginormous monitors that had the big back that were 90 pounds, and yes, I used to move those around the warehouse. Having devices go to a smaller footprint really did open up the market to the refresh and the need to buy new systems and greater systems for the individual and corporate market. And there was a need because we recognized the environmental impact those devices had on the planet. You've got mercury in the screens. You've got a lot of chemicals in the purchasing or in the production of a computer device that don't disintegrate. They don't go away. So if they end up in landfills, they're leaching into the planet. They're hurting the environment. And so it really drove a force of not just recycling, but reusing. And reusing a device actually keeps the harmful impacts of that system on the planet to a minimum. And so when that became more recognized on a community level, people sought us out, right, which was great. The other thing that we noticed that was a big impact on our growth specifically was the shutdown of the pandemic. In 2019, I remember sitting across the table from a donor trying to convince them that there were families and households that did not have devices in their home. And they just did not believe me. And then come March 2020, when we all were stuck at home with the need of devices to be able to access anybody, whether it was socially, economic, or health-wise, that was when the reality of, hey, computers are really important and there's a huge lack in the community.
Wow. And I know that education had already been moving in the direction of more digital access for kids and reliance on computers for learning in general. But the pandemic, I remember, it was quite a change for everyone, I believe.
Well, it certainly shifted the mindset because I think even prior to that, you did see some school districts that were buying computers for their students. Not all of them. We have 42 school districts here in the county, and not all of them were buying devices, didn't have the budget or didn't prioritize it to some of their other needs. But when schools closed down and they realized that now not only are the ones that do have resources, the students that do have resources are going to suffer, the ones without those resources are going to fall back as far as 7, 8, 9 months in their academic. We actually rose from distributing 11,000 devices in 2019 to over 35,000 devices in 2020, that very first year. So the growth was tremendous.
Wow. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are wondering how the community of business benefits from donating computers, and especially the mid to large companies that probably produce a lot of e-waste.
Yeah, so, there's that concept of corporate social responsibility, right? We as a company need to be able to make sure that we're doing good in the community. There is a very strong drive on the consumer base that I want to, if I have a choice of buying cereal or soda and there's 500 options on the grocery aisle, I'm going to choose the product that I know is going to make a stronger impact and speaks to what I believe in, whether it's environmental, educational, homelessness, children, animals, right? There's a lot of ways that a corporation could build their customer base by letting the customers know we as a company are doing X, Y, Z to make sure that we're giving back to the community. And by recycling your devices to a nonprofit refurbisher, that really speaks volumes, because not only are you caring about the environment, but you're also caring about education. You're caring about seniors, health, homelessness, because a device in itself impacts all of those different industries. And I think C2K is unique in that sense that unlike a nonprofit that just focuses on one area, we do touch all of them in multiple ways.
Are there write-offs that are available for companies that donate?
There are tax write-offs, and I know a lot of companies, and I'm going to speak to them right now, that possibly sell off their electronics. They use an asset management company. They pay the asset management company to come in, replace their systems, take them off. And they're really getting a small dollar line on their books. They'll get a greater tax discount and break, a tax credit, if they, instead of just selling those off and getting those pennies on the pound, they divert them to a nonprofit refurbisher. And in San Diego, that, of course, is Computers to Kids. We are one of the largest in the nation. We're in the top 3. But there's 98 of us all over the country. So even if you have an office based here in San Diego, but multiple offices around the country, we can work with you to get those devices here directly to our facility, or oftentimes we'll connect you to another refurbisher that's in the area that we know is a trusted source, and work with you on the ground there in that particular sector and footprint. But the tax benefit that you're going to get for giving the computers as a donation versus the pennies you're going to feed is going to be greater, because you get a write-off the value on that, plus there are certain ESG credits that you get for that.
And speaking of ESG credits that companies would get, there's it's a changing landscape, especially right now. How do you see legislation or certain policies that are in place, the ones that maybe explain the ones that benefit companies like organizations like Computers to Kids, and companies that utilize organizations like Computers to Kids, and then maybe where the legislative or policy landscape might change?
So I would say right now there's a lot of uncertainty on where we're going to land at the end of the day. But the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and the federal government right now has been implementing some policy changes. The removal from the Environmental Protection Agency, that's going to be a big deal. The changes in the Paris Accord, that's going to be a big impact on the types of credits that a company may get. But at the end of the day, I think a company needs to ask themselves, does our company want to do what's best for the environment? And does our company want to do what's best for our employees? And employees love coming to work for companies that care about their footprint on the planet, right? That motivates a lot of employees to choose different companies to go to. For us personally, it's had a big impact because it's frozen a lot of decision making at the corporate level. So you have companies that are holding and pausing their giving to charitable organizations. They're pausing and holding on to buying new systems and replacing their systems because they want to wait and see, is this something I should be spending my budget on right now? Are there going to be higher costs associated? It impacts the manufacturing industry because a lot of the goods that we get are from China that impact our electronics. So that is going to cause a little bit of a hiccup in the supply chain of devices, I think. We saw that during the pandemic, of course, when it was really hard to get computers and find computers. But I know for us personally, just in the act of refurbishing a device, I look at making sure the device has all the components it needs to be strong and robust for the families that we're placing it with. To do that, sometimes I'm buying RAM, I'm buying updated hard drives because maybe there's failure in hard drives. I'll be buying different components. All of that right now, the biggest supplier of those devices is China. I'm currently personally experiencing an extended delay on my ability to get those goods. So I'm purchasing them, and it's taking twice as long for them to come, and sometimes getting stopped once they come here stateside, and they're sitting there waiting. So I think that is going to have a bigger impact on corporations as a whole, especially those in the manufacturing sector.
Wow. And speaking of impact, maybe just remind everybody what the environmental impact is and what Computers to Kids has kind of accomplished in its history.
Yes. So people don't realize, when you have 50,000 or 50 million metric tons of devices that are being refurbished every year, and we're constantly, especially the United States, as a community that just wants to get the latest and greatest, right? And so every time you buy that new device, there may not be anything wrong with your previous device, but you want the latest bells and whistles. That device now is sitting there and it needs to find a home. And there is air emissions issues, there's greenhouse gas issues, it affects the water emissions on our planet. Technology has a really big reach on that. For us, we know that if a company, and we have a metric that we use for companies whenever they donate to computers to kids, if you give me your company refresh systems, I can tell you in the reuse and refurbishing of that device, the equivalent of how many households we power in a year, how many cars, the equivalent of how many cars are removed off of the streets, the reduction in air emissions and hazardous waste pollution, and can actually sign you a volume. So if I have 1,900 pounds of electronics, I have powered a house for 1 year. And 1,900 pounds of electronics is not a lot. You know, that's a small little pickup, maybe a small office worth of devices that we're taking from a company. So for us, and I think that one of the values to a corporation is we're actually able to take the donation we see from a company and give them real-time monetary and environmental value to that donation that they can share with their customers, they can share with their employees. You know, they can really tell that story as a company of the impact that they're making. And that's just the environmental impact. That's not even talking about the goodwill and benefit and value that they're making by having those devices end up in a home of a family. You know, it's a win-win.
Yeah, it is a win-win. Thank you very much. I think you've given our community of business a lot to consider about e-reuse and its benefits. Thank you again. Was there anything else that we didn't mention? And then how can people get a hold of Computers to Kids if they're interested in donating?
Yes, we've talked a lot about the environmental portion of the devices and the corporate giving of the devices, but I really want to talk about briefly the impact it can make to have a device in the home. A lot of people don't realize that if a family does not have a computer in the home and they do not have access to the internet, within the first year after placing that device in that family's home, they have the potential of earning more than 25% greater income within that first year. We know that a child that does not have access to technology in their home can average a 2.8 GPA. Within the first year of having that device placed in their home, that GPA can jump up to 3.5. Those are really significant numbers, not just at the early age, right, for the child, but think about that student and their future, their impact. If we start them off stronger at an earlier age, if we allow their family to economically be impacted in a positive way early on, they are going to be a greater contributor to society. They're going to earn more. They're going to spend more, to local businesses. They're going to rely less on social support, right, and need for extra community care. It's a way to build our community into a stronger, robust community. So I really just want people to think about, yes, there's an environmental impact of providing your technology and paying it forward, but there's also a really strong economic impact for society as a whole. To answer your question, contact us. I would say our website is c2k.org. You can email me personally at info@c2k.org. That comes to me. And I would say call me, 858-200-9790. It will come directly to me. I would welcome anyone in the community to reach out and hear about what we do. We're happy to give a tour. I'd love to talk to the corporate community out there about how you're refreshing your computers and how we can really give you a strong impact on the community by redirecting those retired devices directly to Computers to Kids. And if you are a nonprofit or a community member out there that's supporting the community that has a greater need, we love to collaborate. That gets us excited to get up in the morning. So you call us and we will find the best way to be able to help your families that you're servicing and be able to help our community as a whole.
Hey, Cheri, thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope the community of business enjoyed our very first episode of the podcast.
And Cheri, this is Kevin again. I'd just like to personally thank you, because after you and I met last year and I started to understand what you do, I went through my home and I found, I think it was 3 laptops or 3 computers that were sitting there because I was afraid to give them or dispose of them because of the environmental aspect and because of safety, data safety. And you guys came and got them, and you wiped them, and you refurbished them, and you gave them to people that they could help. And I truly appreciate that. Thank you. So it's not just what you're doing for the business community, it's what you're doing for the community as a whole.
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, I'd say this is a time to clean out everybody's garage, closet, extra office storage space. I mean, I'm guilty. I have an actual storage unit myself, and I know there's a lot of people that do. Go in there and find that computer. It is never too old. And it's not just computer devices. We take all electronics, working or non-working. So that ball of cords that you have in your drawer and you don't even know what it belongs to, we will take that as well. So
oh my gosh,
this is the time to clean.
Me a whole weekend. That's awesome. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing with us, and thank you all for joining us for the Community of Business in San Diego Business Journal, and we look forward to chatting with you the next time.
This has been a podcast from the San Diego Business Journal, the Community of Business. Keep watch on the journal's website, sdbj.com, for this and other podcasts, past and future. Copyright San Diego Business Journal, all rights reserved.